My camera. How about them Giants? How about them Giants? How about them Giants?
Woo! What's happening, people? Welcome to an episode of Giants Rush, where we talk Giants football, 50 weeks of the year. We're that podcast you love to hate, and we're back on another Monday to hang out with you folks. I see you guys piling in the room. What's up, boys? Look at that. Ryan's hanging out with us. What's up, Ryan? Oh, I know you guys, you and Tim Ryan are all bosom buddies now. I know. I see the love fest going on all week long on Twitter. We are pounding it out for you, Ryan, for hanging out with us. Welcome aboard. Guys, we got Tim on from Online Big Blue Entertainment. He's always a great character to have on. Very knowledgeable dude. Of course, I got Joker with me. We're going to chop it up. Lots of cool things. Today, a little bit different, though, because I'm going to mix up some old school with some new school, right? We're gonna talk a little Russell Wilson. We're gonna talk a little Tiki Barber. We're gonna talk about sacks. And then I'm also going to throw in a little wild card because I want to talk a little ESPN. Anything that comes up along the way, bring it. Jump in the room. Let us know that you're here. Love to have you guys on. And I'm gonna find Joker's intro here because it's always a favorite amongst friends here. I will say, as I always do,
It's good to be the king.
Always good to be the king. And my right-hand man, it's Sean. Let's bring him in.
Miss the fireworks.
There won't be any fireworks.
And here we go.
Boom. What's up?
What's going on, dude?
Yeah, you know me. I'm living the American dream. I'm hanging out with you. I got Tim here. We've been trying to get on. I know you two been all bosom buddies and stuff like that without me, which is fine. I get it. But it's cool. You know, like I've got one of these very busy, hectic schedules chasing, high school sports around the country. And you're just sitting back, drinking beers, hanging out with Tim. And now you guys are boys. I get it.
Pretty much. Well, when you got no responsibilities like I have, you can get away with that. So it works. I'm going to enjoy it while I can. And as I always like to say, there's going to be fireworks tonight.
I'm sure. Because let's bring in Tim. You guys know Tim from Online Big Blue Entertainment. For whatever reason, we just hit it off with Tim recently, and I've always admired his work. So it's always good to have him on. And you guys know him because of all the crazy YouTube stuff. I mean, the man churns out content like mad. Like I wish I could even remotely keep up with the man, which I can't. Let's bring in Tim. And by the way, his hair is pristine looking today. And I feel a little honored because maybe he did it, because, he maybe likes me a little bit. Maybe because he's not worried about Joker because he ain't got no hair. So let's bring in Tim.
Actually, Joker told me I was your replacement.
Wow, that's messed up.
I thought this. I mean, Joker, man, you told me we had to get rid of the one guy in the corner. What the fuck, man?
Listen,
you told me it's going to be a two-man booth, and now there's a third wheel. I'm just excited to be here, guys, to see the King, to see the Joker, to see everyone else.
Yeah, man.
I'm happy to be anywhere. No one invites me to I'm that guy that no one invites.
Yeah, you say that though, but I see you out there. Like, you know what?
Yeah, you're everywhere.
Because well, we know you're bringing good Giants content to the table, so we love that.
Yes.
Now we know, which I didn't know, that you got really good hair. And any guy that's got really good hair, like I'm in. Yeah, I'm in. Look, because I didn't cough it up. It's the only Tim. Look, this is the only redeeming quality I have left.
That's it, man. I'm in my late 50s, and this is what I got.
I love it.
And it's just, like I said, people always laugh because I wear a hat a lot of times. And they're like, why? I said, because when it gets like your hair, you have to wear a hat. Some people just don't get it.
No. Yeah. Like I said, it's the only redeeming quality I have left. Everything else is broken. Nothing works, need some surgeries or things are just not that pleasant, but the hair still has a little bit of life to it. So
there's these little pills. They're blue. Just help me out, man. Just helping you out.
Hey, listen, if you're speaking now, if you're speaking from experience, well, that might be another show.
Well, hell yeah. You're in your 50s, yeah.
Exactly. And that's, and by the way,
prescriptions.
And that show, my friends, is going to cost $12.99 to just help
right. All right. Well, look, we got two guys with a lot of gray hair and very long hair. This is going to be an interesting show. And see, I don't need to grow my hair out long because I have a lot of other redeeming qualities. So there you go. Right. I got the beard. So when you guys can hit me up with a good beard, then come talk to me. All right. I don't need to grow my hair out.
I'll work on that for next week.
Yeah,
there you go. When I get more grays in my hair, I'll grow it out. That's the deal I'll make.
Wait, gray in there? What do you see gray in there? No gray in there.
You got more gray than I got.
This isn't gray. This is blonde.
Exactly. You tell him.
That's what my father used to say too. It's not gray. It's blonde.
Are you calling? You trying
back
to
in
say
the days of the sun in?
I think you just called Tim old in a backhanded way. But
that's
gentlemen,
that's a front-handed.
No,
way
I do it forehandedly here.
I don't think he's got a problem with that.
All right, let's talk to Giants football because I do have some questions. And like last week we talked a little bit about Hyatt because everybody was all fascinated with Hyatt. Like, I don't know, for whatever reason, like everything was Hyatt last week. So, but I want to kind of steer it back, Sean, talk about Russ, okay?
Yeah.
Because like we really haven't spent a whole lot of time with Russ. We talked about Jackson Dart, we talked about Carter, we got into a lot of stuff. The only guy we didn't really pay a lot of attention to, we're here every single Monday, at 7:30, and I really don't think we talked a lot about Russ. So just I'm gonna send this out into the water, see what happens, right? And what I get. Because here's three things I want to bring up to you.
Okay.
2002, 2003, 2004, right? So 1 year, 2 years at Denver, one at Pittsburgh. So in 2022, Russ threw for 3,500 yards, and I'm rounding. It was 3,524, but 3,500 yards and 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. The 11 interceptions is the most interceptions he's thrown in his career. He's thrown 11 interceptions before, but that's the most he's ever thrown in a season.
Okay.
First year in Denver, he plays 15 games. Second year in Denver, he plays 15 games. He throws for a little bit less, 3,000 yards. Again, rounding, 3,070. But he ups his touchdowns from 16 to 26. You like that? And he takes his interceptions from 11 to 8. So you're like, all right, a little less yardage, but more production, right? More.
I think less games too, if I'm not mistaken, right? Then he
says he played 15. So I was just going by Pro Football Stats.
Yeah,
gave him 15 games each year. Pittsburgh, we know he played only 11 games. Then he threw for 2,400 yards, 16 touchdowns, just like he did 2 years prior to that, and only 5 interceptions. And I'm sure you could prorate that out over 16 games and come up with a number. Question to you is: those aren't terrible stats for an older guy. Can he duplicate, or can he even do better? Because he's got a guy like Malik Neighbors, lined up outside, which he hadn't really had prior.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can duplicate him at least. Could he exceed him? Sure. Anything's a possibility, right? Because you got Neighbors, you got some other weapons out there. As I mentioned before, and a couple weeks ago, I think they'll run the ball a little bit more too. So, but I like it. And listen, we talked a few times about Russ, but nothing significant. What I like about him, and Darius Slayton said it here today, was even if you're not in the main route or the main target, he's going to look your way if he sees something that's going on there. And I think that's another advantage that Russ brings is he can read coverages, he can see things, and everybody has to be on their toes. Like, we all know, like we've all been there, right? You're in a route, you're not the main guy, you kind of loaf. Well, these guys won't, because he's like, look, I'm going to hit you. If you're there and I see something, I'm going to hit you. So I like that. So I think the numbers wise, yes, numbers are great, but there's nuances. There's things that he's going to bring that are going to really impact this team in ways that a lot of fans I don't think understand, including even helping receivers be better at running routes, which we haven't had in a while. Like Eli was good at that. He could tell people, hey, when you see the DB, do this, do this. So I think those are the things. But yeah, going back again, I think he can at least duplicate him. If he duplicates those, I'll take that, because with the defense, how other things are going to be, with the rushing game we're going to have, I think we'll be in good shape there.
Tim, he's a little bit of a wild card, Russ. I mean, he's got some quirks, right? I mean,
he's got some quirks, he's got some kinks, he's got some mileage. Going back to what Joker was saying a little bit, one of the phrases I hate, and you didn't use it directly, was, he does the things that don't show up on the stat sheet. He does those little things that makes players better. There's some nuances to that, and there's some things that are it's just bull. Russ is going to be who he is now. He's not going to be who he was even back 3 years ago in Denver, because he's a different player. He's a different person. He is, as some people know, not me, as you get older, the body has a tendency to wane a little bit. So the question is going to be, will the Giants, I think Russ will be fine, but people need to expect Russell Wilson what they've averaged the last 3 years, not what he used to be. But the biggest issue to me with Russell Wilson is going to be the offensive line. Because you're not looking at that mobile quarterback anymore. You're not looking at that guy that has the escapability. I loved it when we first got him. You go on Twitter and you see all these plays, and Giant fans like, oh, look at this, look what he's doing. Then I was looking and go, that's Will Wolford. So then I went back and said, oh, that was his rookie season. We're not getting that. We're getting a guy that hopefully you can stay upright. You're getting a guy that may be a little bit slower getting through his progressions, getting through his reads, because of the fact that he is going to be learning a new system. And it's going to be interesting the first couple of weeks. And my concern about Russell Wilson is, I say it all the time, we are an injury away and an interception away from seeing Jackson Dart early. So the question is, can Russell Wilson stay upright behind this offensive line? Are they going to be able to give him the time to find Malik Neighbors deep? Or are we going to be another dink and dunk offense with some guy that wore some single digit number that's somewhere else in Indianapolis? I don't know yet. Because like I said, OTAs, what does OTA mean? It means nothing. It's when we get into camp, is when we get into preseason, is when we get into that first preseason game in Buffalo. We're going to see, hopefully, them play at least a series, but hopefully we're going to see what Russ has left in the tank, because I think he'll be fine, but I think it needs to be tempered with expectations. If Russ puts up 20 touchdowns and 10 interceptions and throws for 3,000 yards and gives us 15 games with our defense, hopefully that could give us a chance to be somewhere around maybe 7 wins.
Okay. But, and that's fair, by the way. That's more than fair, right? I think I can play a little bit of, like, I'm not that guy. We're winning 12 games. Like, I'm not that dude, but optimistic. I want to be a little bit, normally I'm pessimistic, right? Because the Giants don't do enough to get better. And I can see the writing on the wall when the season starts. So this year I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic, because the defense is going to be, that's going to be the identity of the team, hoping that they can get off the field, on third down, which is going to give us more opportunity to have the ball, which we didn't have the ball a lot last year. And then there's this wild card, no pun, Joker, that Andrew Thomas could potentially be healthy and actually help this team, because the guy has not been healthy. And when he goes down, the whole line folds and guys are shifting around other positions. And then we're right back to where we've been the last 10 of 12 years. So, you can always play the what if game, but I can be optimistic and say starting the season, Andrew Thomas is healthy, right? So that automatically makes the line better than 3/4 of what we had last year. I don't know if JMS is going to pop.
I was going to say, but the question is going to be, do you have any confidence in Evan Neal? Do you have any confidence in JMS, who his first season in the league led the league in holding penalties for starting center? Last year, he led the leagues in sacks allowed from a starting center.
Yep.
I'm not going to call them retreads in certain players and other positions of the line, but you're expecting someone like Bo to, I mean, not you guys, I'm just saying some fans in general are expecting like Bo to come in, and be this rotating savior if things start going awry. And like I said, the biggest question I will always have with this team, like I said, competent quarterback play is something we have lacked since Eli Manning.
Yes.
And if we take a look at this from the perspective of just even having a competent quarterback, like I said, if we're relying on Andrew Thomas, who played 6 games last year and 12 the year before, it could get the only thing I worry about is it could get dicey quick because there are so many question marks still within the interior portion of that line that I don't know. I mean, like I'm excited. I got my fingers crossed. I got everything crossed that Andrew Thomas is healthy, and Evan Neal can maybe find a little bit. God, I hate to say it, a little bit of Eric Flowers. And try to find a little bit of competent play at the guard. But
well, let me again flipping that upside down. I'm going this route. Is the team lost 8 games by 1 touchdown or less last year with the worst quarterback play in the NFL, right? And a patchwork offensive line. The kicker lost 2 games against Buffalo and the Jets. So and if you're thinking about if we're going your route, Tim, and we're not talking about who he was, but the guy that plays for the Colts right now was our quarterback. And we had a patchwork offensive line and no kicker in 8 games we lost with 1 touchdown or less. Competent play. Andrew Thomas gives me an extra notch, and a defense that's getting off on the field on 3rd down. And smart, competent play allows me to believe that you're a better offense. You're not a sexy offense. We are not a sexy offense. We're not like, hey, we got these all pro guards. We got this. No, we don't. But if Andrew Thomas is healthy, we have the best quarterback room we've had in a long time. And if we are looking at remotely the same offense we had last year, but Russ, there's nowhere to go but up. And you're talking about 8 games losing by 1 touchdown or less. Got to be an opportunity, as you mentioned earlier, to win 7 games. So you're hoping that a couple things go your way. You have to hope. It's easy to say, what if that, what if that, what if that? But the other side is, what if, right? If the guy,
everyone's undefeated in June.
Yep. So the question is, and still remains, is Russ in a silo and Joker, throwing it back to you, Russ, forget about Thomas, and like I said, JMS, he's played with, I think, 7 different guards in 2 years. You need some continuity. So I'm not completely blaming JMS. But still the question, and both of you can answer it, is in a silo, does he have it in him to throw for 3,000 plus yards? And let's just round it and say 25 touchdowns. Can Russell Wilson throw on this offense with that, let's say they're, the 23rd best offensive line.
Yeah.
Can he throw for 3,025?
Yeah, I think he can. And again, the thing I know people talk about what he did in Pittsburgh, but again, his OC and his head coach took away his ability to throw deep. They wanted to run more. They wanted check downs. They wanted to do all those things. And don't forget that Pickens was out for a little bit as well. And he was really their only weapon. I know the tight end a little bit, but I think the weapons here, he's got some real good shots. So I think he can with that. Because again, Dable is the kind of guy that's like, if it's there, throw it. Like he wants it thrown. But the other thing that Russ is going to be able to do, because we have the guys that Daboll's offense is about right? So Russell Wilson can throw to guys on time and lead them, and that's going to help their yak. So whether he's throwing deep or whether he's throwing short and they're getting yak, I think you're going to see more yak this year. That's my prediction.
Let's give a shout out to Ryan, who's in, some of you guys I see popping in the room. I see Ryan. I see Big Blue for Life. I see Big Blue Forever. I see OGR Sports. I see Mark Thompson is a staple here. What's up, Mark? I see Mark B.
All the way from Barbados.
Yep, all the way from the islands.
I got to meet Mark a couple of years ago at the stadium, and that was actually a lot of fun. So it was a good time that he came down with him and his son. So it was an interesting day.
Yeah, no doubt. Mark is we call him like the OG here at Rush because he's been with us for so long and always brings a lot of great insight to the table. Also, Michael Coughlin, which we always lead with. Is this related to Tom Coughlin or Carter Coughlin? We hope it's Tom and not Carter. But hey, either way, it's always good to have a Coughlin in the building. I hope we were on time for you, Mr. Coughlin. All right, Tim, in a silo, just as much as you can put him in a silo. Does he have the arm strength? Does he have the patience to throw for 3,025?
I will give him 3,020. I'm not going to go over 25. I might even go a little under 20 because of the fact that our offensive philosophy this year, especially with getting Scatterboo, hopefully relying a little bit more on Tracy, and hopefully not being so singularly dimensional in reference to throwing the neighbors, is hopefully going to be a little bit more of a patient offense, a little bit more of a ball control offense, as you mentioned before, keeping the defense off the field. So I'm just looking for a fact that I'm also curious to see what the play calling is going to be, because allegedly Kafka is supposed to take back over again. I was never a fan of Kafka when he came over to the team, because it never made sense to me to bring in an OC with zero experience and turn over the keys to the offense and say, hey, and do what you want to do, and then literally take his power away and then bring it back. So I'm not even sure what offense they're going to run. I'm not sure what style it's going to be yet, but if we're in a silo, I would give him at least 3,000 yards and at least 20, only because of the fact that, like I said, I think the Giants right now are going to try to win through defense, ball control, make sure you control the clock, at least score 23, 24 points a game, and hopefully your defense holds them under the 17 and win that way.
Anything over 14 points a game is a blessing. Tim, I said this a couple weeks ago. I'm still going to stand by it. Russ is not a dumb guy. He's a businessman. He's got a very popular entertainer for a wife. They wanted to be here last year, and they wouldn't let Russ compete for the job, right? So he walked, right? The interesting thing for me, I find, is him sitting down at the table, and Sean knows where I'm going with this. I can't see him signing a contract saying, look, you know what? I know you're drafting a quarterback. I might be here. I might be 6 games. It might be 10 games, but I know I'm out. I know I'm out halfway through the season. Like, I don't see it. To me, Russ, is a guy who sits down with the pen in his hand and he says, listen, if I win 8 games, I want another contract. You've sucked for 2 straight years. If I win 8 games, I want to ink another deal. I don't want to be looking over my shoulder. I want an opportunity, to sign a new deal for next year. If I get a wild card, I definitely, I want a 2-year deal, whatever it may be. But I don't think that cat signed a deal knowing that he could be ousted in 6 weeks for whatever quarterback they did. It wind up being Dart, of course. But, I don't think he did that. I think he's got some security, or he wouldn't have signed it. I'm not saying he can't play terrible and get replaced. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in his mind, he doesn't want to go out a bum, and he wants to be here 2 years, get his wife settled in. Maybe he moves right into broadcasting, right? But I don't see this cat just being like this. Yeah, let's do it. 6 games. It's good enough for me. Heck, just call me Kurt Warner. I don't see that happening, Plus, Kurt Warner just took 105 sacks in that year. So I think Russ comes out and plays well. I agree with you. It's somewhere in between. Yeah, he could throw for 3,000. You could definitely throw for Tim, you're a little on the light. Sean, you might be a little on the heavy. But either way, let's just round it, say between 18 and 24, right? I'm going right in the middle, right? You can definitely throw for 21. His interceptions have gone down 11, 8, and 5, right? He's gotten better. He's gotten, better with the ball. Not that he was ever terrible with the ball. I think it's going to depend on how many people now are looking at Neighbors, right? They got tape on them, right? Got tape on Neighbors now. Maybe he sees a lot more doubles. Ken Hyatt, Ken Bellinger, Ken Theo, Ken Slayton actually ball out with a better QB, because everything was just a one-track mind with Jones. God, pull the trigger already. He's wide open. Come on. Look that guy off and throw it to somebody else.
That's what my wife says. Pull the trigger already, would you please? I'm sorry. I forgot we were talking about I'm sorry. I don't have my rim shot here. I'm not controlling everything. The one thing that people forget about Russell Wilson is what was the Russell Wilson market before he signed with the Giants?
I don't think any of us really know, though.
He was on the market through almost all the free agency. He was wavering to go back to Pittsburgh. It's not like teams that were quarterback needy or had rookie quarterbacks went to Russell Wilson and said, hey, we need to give you X because of the fact that you are this guy. But and I always love about the Sierra, I always say this over and over again, Carmelo Anthony and Lala wanted to be here and they got divorced a year later. So no, I'm not saying that's going to happen to Russ. I'm just mentioning that happened, but there was not this huge free agent market. Jameis Winston went before Russell Wilson. There was a plethora of quarterbacks that went before Russell Wilson.
Sure. But that's all.
Well, to be fair, Jameis went as a backup, so he's not getting signed as a starter.
Good point, but Jameis probably was given some indication because they didn't know if Russell was going to go back to Pittsburgh. That hey, you might play the first half of the season because we might be drafting a rookie.
I think they had Russell under wraps, but they didn't let it out. I think the interest was there longer than people realize. Now, again, we know who else they were looking at beforehand, but I think the interest for Russell was there longer than most people realize, and they just kept under wraps. When you think about like what Slayton said and what the plan was for quarterback, he knew it was going to be a drafted quarterback and then somebody else with experience. That's why he said he came back. So I'm curious about that, but I also think Russell wasn't back in Pittsburgh because he wanted to do things that the coordinator didn't want to do, the head coach didn't want to do, and they said that all year. They're like, look, we're going to be run heavy, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and I think he's going to be a really good fit here. I think he wants to be here. He's excited to be here. I think with the group of young guys we have, they're excited to have a veteran quarterback. So it's kind of like the perfect storm coming together. Yeah. And he's already doing things that I don't remember seeing him do in other places, like the team bowling, a lot of other team bonding. Like he seems a little less corny here than he has in other places.
The vibes are different.
Corny. He's still corny.
Well, yes, but he's a little less.
I saw him personally at the draft party. And when more people were cheering that see where Sierra was, I was a little concerned. I was a little concerned about that, but like I said, I think Russell Wilson will fit. I think Russell Wilson will do a good job. It's going to be, are they going to be able to keep him upright for 17 weeks?
I think he's more mobile than we give him credit for too. He's not a slouch back there. He can move around still. He's not what he was years ago, but he'll move around. And again, the O-line is much better than it gets credit for. Because one thing we're not going to have Josh Ajudu playing tackle again if Thomas goes down. And Marcus Bowe, the only reason he went as late as he did was because of that serious injury that he had. He's a first-round talent, second-round talent that went later because he had that serious injury. And when you look at what he does at tackle and his footwork and all of that, don't be surprised if he can actually make more of an impact than we realize. Like, he's a rookie, and I'm not going to say he's going to be a stud right at the gate, but he's going to be better than people realize. No, don't look at where he was drafted. I'm not saying you, Tim. I'm talking to people. Sure. Don't look at where he was drafted.
I'm just giving you the dirty look for no reason.
Yeah. I got that resting face as well. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's, and 2 years under Brasillo, continuity where the same guys are back. And the guy that doesn't get talked about enough is Greg Van Roten. He actually played much better than people realize. And if you need to move him to center, he did really well there as well. So I think that O-line, and when you look at what they did, and Craig, I know you had this stat before, like it was like 36 less times that they were sacked or on pace or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was 36 less times than the year before.
Yeah. So
and it was a dramatic difference because he was getting sacked like every 12 times he dropped back, he got sacked the year before. So there was a major improvement from that standpoint. A little bit of curve in there, if he's taken off because he's healthy, but the line is not, like I said, it's not sexy. It doesn't got a bunch of Pro Bowlers on it. Your best player who could be a top 5 tackle in the league is always hurt. Like you could easily flip it upside down. But trying to be, like I said, trying to be optimistic because it's not normally our forte here.
From what I understand too, Thomas put on a little more mass this offseason, got a little stronger, a little leaner, a little more muscular, which I think he's aware of the injuries. Well, one was a freak one, though. Let's be realistic, Yep. So it's not like he's injury prone in my mind, but and the depth they added too.
But it's been 2 of 5, right? Or 2.5 of 5. And
well, but one was the freak thing though too. That's I'm going to say 1.
See, we can't do that because it's like it's either you're on the field or you're off the field.
I can do what I want. I'm Joker. I can do what I want.
You're part of the show. It's okay. I'm going to allow it.
Yeah, but you know what though? When he says stuff like that, I just do this. I just turn his mic off, and then now he can't say anything, right? So
I just take him off the screen completely.
Oh, you want me to do this? You want me to?
That's what I do. I call it wonking. I wonk his ass.
Yeah.
I love the guy too much to do that too long. As soon as he goes blank, he's not there. I feel guilty all of a sudden. All right, let's move on to something bigger and better, which will be debated for now until, excuse me, I'm dying. Debated until now that they stop playing this game, which could be sooner than you expect, since everybody wants to play flag football. And that conversation revolves around number 21, Tiki Barber. And I'm bringing this up because, I struggle with this cat and how it went down and how he left, and the whole leaving your wife while she's pregnant and the whole Eli Manning thing. But the dude could ball, and he doesn't get a lot of love from a Hall of Fame perspective. Gentlemen, I'm going to read you a couple stats here, and you tell me, and you probably know this, but maybe you need a little bit of a refresher, how freaking badass that Tiki Barber was as a running back for the New York Giants. Just off the top, okay, let's just say that he had 5 in a row in 6 of 7 years of rushing for 1,000 or more. Okay, that's 5 in a row and 5 of 6. I'm sorry, 6 of 7. Sorry, 6 of 7. In 2005, he led the NFL in all-purpose yards, from line of scrimmage with 2,390, 2,390, and that was the second consecutive year that he had done it. So back-to-back years, he led the NFL in what we used to call all-purpose yards, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's impressive, right? Then you look at he was more than just a running back. He had 6 years of over 500 yards receiving. I mean, that's unheard of. So now you're like, all right, well, how good could he have actually been? There's a ton of running backs. There's some guys that shine. In 2005, for the offensive MVP voting, Sean Alexander won, which he lost the rushing title to by about 20 yards. I think it was 18 yards or something like that. Sean Alexander won the MVP voting that year with number 1. Peyton Manning was number 2. Tom Brady was number 3. And Tiki Barber, with 12% of the votes, was number 4. And then Carson Palmer, QB, was number 5. This guy was really good and could have had basically been thrown on the trash heap because he couldn't stop fumbling the ball. Turned out to be just an outstanding running back. It's just unheard of that anybody does anything like this. Nowadays, you got a guy like Matt Forte who receives for 1,000 yards, and then you get a guy Ezekiel Elliott, he can't catch the ball, but he rushes for 1,000 yards and so forth. Tim, what's your thoughts on, we've all watched Tiki play. We saw everything he did, and he took a lot of bad rap for everything he did, and nobody's condoning anything he did, but is some of the off-field stuff affecting the on-field stuff? Why isn't this cat in the Hall of Fame?
Because he shouldn't be. And I'm a Giant fan, and I'm a football purist. I mean, I study football. I read books about football. I just going back to the 60s and the 70s and everything. He had a period of time towards the end of his career for a good 5 years where he was a very good back. Was he ever truly the best back in the league outside of maybe one season? No. You bring up Sean Alexander. Sean Alexander is a great point. He had 5-6 years where Sean Alexander was the best back in the entire league. Rush for that. Bring up 2005, rush for 27 touchdowns. He has over 100. I mean, Sean Alexander has over 100 rushing touchdowns. Yes, Tiki Barber was a very good back, and for a couple seasons was probably in the top 3 or 4 in the league. But in reference to consistency, you look at early on in his career, as we all know, running backs, when you hit that magic number 27, 28, normally you start going downhill. He was the exact opposite, like him and Adrian Peterson. but he only had a snippet where he was a very good back for 5 years. He isn't like Gale Sayers, who Gale Sayers only played for 5 years, but the Kansas Comet made the Hall of Fame because the first 3 seasons he played, there was nothing like anyone had ever seen before, and he set massive records, even though he was on extremely bad Bear teams. But he was so special in those 3 years that he was probably not only the best back in the league, but one of the best players in the league. You can't say that for Tiki Barber outside of maybe that second to last season.
So let me ask you this then. Let me stop you there because that's a good point, by the way. But so you're talking about in 2002, 1,300 yards. In 2003, 1,200 yards. In 2004, 1,500 yards. In 2005, 1,800 yards. And 2006, 1,600 yards. So,
and how many rushing touchdowns did Shaun Alexander average during that period of time?
Yeah, I'll look that up next. My question, though, I promise,
I can actually tell you.
Okay, because here's the thing. With your philosophy, which is not a bad philosophy at all, and Sean, jump in here.
Yeah,
you're not the best back in the league. You're not Hall of Fame worthy. So I'm trying to find out there's not many more backs that are rushing for, those type of yards. Now the touchdowns, like I said, because he's got receiving touchdowns and rushing touchdowns.
Tiki's got 55 rushing, I think 17 receiving. Shaun Alexander has 100
receiving. He's got 12. Receiving.
Well, Shaun Alexander has 112 total touchdowns. Tiki Barber's got 55 rushing, I believe,
and 12 receiving.
12 receiving. So
yeah. So my question though is that if you're not the best back,
yeah, but who else was on that Seattle team with Shaun Alexander? He was their offense. He was the guy. That's why they had touchdowns.
But that's
in Tiki's thing. They had other players. They had Toomer. You had Shockey.
But early on, no, they didn't. Yes, towards the latter half of his career. But the problem is this: Shaun Alexander averaged over 300 carries a year for an extended period of time. I always tell people it's the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Very Good. And for a time,
that's my question. So if you're the second
to that point, I'm going to give you Jerome Bettis is in the Hall of Fame. Jerome Bettis had 192 games.
Never the best back in the league.
No.
Had 192 games, 13,000 rushing yards, 1,500 receiving yards. I rounded up with that, right? So he's in. Tiki had 154 games, 5,100 receiving yards, and over 10,000 rushing yards. So if Jerome Bettis is in the Hall of Fame, then Tiki Barber should be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, if Kenny Stabler's in the Hall of Fame, then so should Phil Simms.
I agree. Phil Simms should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think if Phil Simms doesn't get injured in 90,
Troy Aikman's in the Hall of Fame, then so should Phil Simms. I mean, just because certain players make it in, it doesn't mean that someone else should make it in under the same circumstances. There's also things in the Hall of Fame class where it's just a bad class. And the Hall of Fame the NFL Hall of Fame is not like baseball. Sometimes baseball, they haven't done it in years. Sometimes baseball, they would be like, no, we're not going to have anyone in the Hall of Fame this year. Now they let everybody in. But football is just because, like I said, just because someone got in that probably shouldn't have, doesn't mean that someone else should get in because of the same reason.
No, but you did say that he was never the best back in the league. So that would mean if you're not the best back the best back in the league that year, you should not be in the Hall of Fame.
No, not that year. I said for a consistent period of years. I think Tiki Barber, his second to last season, he was probably the best back in the league. But that was one time out of 11 years. Shaun Alexander could be considered the best back in the league for a 5-year stretch. Gale Sayers was considered the best back. Jerome Bettis made it in because of longevity. What, he played 190-something games?
192.
192 games. That's unheard of at the running back position. He made it in because of the fact that he had that second spurt kind of with the Steelers after coming over from the Rams. So, I mean, he literally was more, to me, it was more, he was who he is as the boss. And to your point, does some of the ancillary things with Tiki Barber, marrying his intern and, divorcing his pregnant wife and what he said about Eli Manning and everything. Does that not help his case? Of course it doesn't, because sports writers are some sport writers, not any giant sport writers, because they're all salt of the earth, are vindictive.
Right.
And Terrell Davis made the Hall of Fame with.
Listen, I don't like Tiki Barber as a person. I don't like what he said about Eli.
But I don't like him. I just think that he is not So, like I said, it's not the Hall of It. It's not. Well, nowadays it's I think the criteria has changed. Do I think he might get in? Yeah. Maybe 10, 20 years down the road. But like I said, back in the day, it was never the Hall of Good. It was the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's changed a lot. There's been a bunch of guys recently that got in, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I just looking at the list here, like there's guys, in the league before guys ran for that much, when they played in the 60s and the 70s, there's guys in there with 6,000, 7,000 yards, and you're in the Hall of Fame. But again, for their era, that was pretty stellar, right?
They only played 12 games.
Yeah, 12 and 14. Riggins. So how about you, Sean?
I think the case that hurts him is his total touchdowns. But again, when you look at others would have done, like LaDainian Tomlinson had 13,000 yards rushing, right? And he had some other yards. Now, if Tiki, let's say, has 3,000 less yards receiving, and that adds it to his rushing total, does that get him in? Like, is he getting taken away because he had as many receiving yards as he did, a little less touchdowns? I don't know. And he was on some teams that, weren't good either. But
and Joker, we can also point out the fact that Edgerrin James was never as good a running back as Tiki Barber is. And, he got a gold jacket. And he was a nice guy. He was great for Indianapolis. But the guy couldn't hold Tiki's jock. I'm sorry. He was great. He had nice soft hands out of the backfield, Edgerrin, but they're not even in the same category. Oh, that was rough. Where'd he go? We lost him.
I was tired of listening to him.
That was not me, folks, by the way.
I just assume you gave me over the show. But Edgerrin James actually rushed for almost over 1,200 yards and 80 touchdowns. I mean, it's not like he was a slouch in like 140 something games.
No, not a slouch at all.
Is he someone that, again, he to me falls in the Jerome Bettis category of longevity? Not it's like baseball when they always say, you got people that I have 350 homers and 1,200 RBIs, but I also played 19 years.
Yeah, I mean, Edgerrin James, Tiki Barber was winning games for the Giants.
Yeah.
Edgerrin James, you weren't like, man, let's just put Peyton on the bench and let Edgerrin just take over and win the game. You're like, no. But the Giants were like, hey, you know what?
If Tiki would have stayed around for 2 more seasons, then there would be, and was at the same level, if not, maybe even just a little bit lower, but at the same level as his last 2 years, this is a different conversation, because then he has, again, but you have to think about the fact that he played for 13 years, but he would have the statistics. He would have more touchdowns. He would, he might have gotten that Super Bowl in 2007. And I'm not going to say he would have, but he would have added more to his accolades to a very storied Giant career. Yeah. But as an NFL, like I said, as an NFL Hall of Famer, like I said, I don't see it. I think he'll make it in one day, but I just don't see it right now.
Do you see Edgerrin James as a Hall of Famer?
No. He's another guy to me.
Fair, then.
He's another guy to me that was like he falls under Jerome Bettis. It was longevity. Yeah. It wasn't the fact. Edgerrin James was only a Pro Bowler 4 times and an All-Pro once.
And like I said, you weren't looking at Edgerrin James like, man, they can't win without Edgerrin James. I mean, you got Peyton Manning there and Reggie Wayne and Harrison, right? Like you weren't going, that team goes because of Edgerrin James. The Giants were literally sometimes Tiki Barber and only Tiki Barber.
Well, his fumbling problems hurt him too. I think that's something
early on,
that hurts your yardage. It hurts certain things like that too. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I think he is underrated because of what he said and what happened. He is underrated as a Giants player. As much as I don't like him, he's a lot better than people give him credit for. There's no doubt about it, especially when you think of what he was doing. And he was doing special team stuff as well. Let's not forget that.
T. Brad says, I would take James over Tiki every day, all day.
I'm just loving the chat. I'm loving all the guys that are stopping by. I see James. I see T. Brad. I see a lot
of Ears in the room.
Grant, I love Grant's Ears says, wow, it's super rare to get Tim, guys. It's super rare. Of course, King told me I was like dog shit and I'm fucking everywhere. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to say anything about that.
So, listen, sometimes the truth.
I'm like, just whatever, man. Just whatever. Just keep it to yourself.
I love it, man. I do really like it, like the perspective on it, because like there is those days where I'm like, Tiki deserves to get in, and then you're like, like you just mentioned, Tim, you're like, guy doesn't really have a lot of touchdowns when you look at some of these other cats. Like, I love the fact that he has some massive yards.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, like, again, two times in a row, he led the league from all-purpose yards. Doesn't really get done by a lot of dudes. You know, came in fourth in the MVP voting. Like, he's like, to me, he's like right there. Like, it's like the cat that falls 100 yards before the finish line. He cramps up and he goes down, right? He needed that last season. Probably Tim is point more around the 2-year mark, which I agree. 2 more seasons. Pulls in, a couple, 20 more touchdowns, like makes a difference. But Sean, fans hated him for quite some time. He seems to be softening up a little bit because people like my age, we still remember what a prick he was on the way out and all the things he walked in with a stick of dynamite and goes, "Don't mind me. I'm just going to blow all this up." And was like, taking my wife, my kids, my friends, my franchise, my quarterback, I'm taking them all with me. And the dude just literally lit a stick of dynamite and was like, ha, boom, and blew it all up at one time. The younger cats are like, "Hey, who's this guy on WFAN? He's not bad. He used to play running back for the Giants." And you're like, yeah. So I think sometimes, in time, people soften. They soften to the crazy crap that LT used to do or just, people soften over time, Sean. Like, will that be something, as Tim alluded to, like, you get in on the NFL alumni vote or maybe squeaks in on the last ballot? I forget how many years you get, Tim. How many years you get?
Oh, on the ballot? I don't.
Yeah, before you move to the alumni ballot.
I don't even remember anymore.
Right?
Because they used to have, it was like 10 years, but they've changed the rules so many times.
Because somebody just made it this past year and was their last year on the ballot.
I think it may be around 15 years because it used to be like 10. It used to be a much shorter period of time because they had so many different players. But yeah, I mean, it's, my question is though to Joker and like I said, we talk about Tiki Barber, we talk about the longevity, we talk about where he was at in his career. I always go back to Rodney Hampton of the Giants. He had I have an autographed Rodney Hampton jersey on the ground over there. But he literally, I saw it in the back. That's what I was thinking. He literally was one of those Giants that had this career that started, during that Super Bowl season. And if he had a little bit more longevity, if you look at the touchdowns and the yards comparable, not the average per carry, but if you look at the way he's comparable to Tiki, it's one of those things we can also say, Rodney Hampton, if he would have played 3-4 more years, he could have been in the Hall of Fame, even though he only finished out with about 7,000 yards rushing.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Rodney Hampton. Huge. I was excited when they drafted him. And if he doesn't get injured
for a minute last time.
Another guy that if he doesn't get injured in 90, we're talking different about him. And let's also remember, like, Rodney Hampton put up those yards on some really bad teams too. Like, he was the offense and he was doing it. So I think both those guys deserve more credit than what they get. And again, it pains me to say that about Tiki because I don't like what he did. I don't like how he left. I don't like some of the stuff he's done in media. But I think here's what I want to put out there is my feeling is this, and I feel the same way in other Hall of Fame, especially baseball Hall of Fame. I think they got to have a better committee on who chooses in. I don't think it should be writers anymore. I do think it should be the peers. Like, actually a great point. I'm getting a wah-wah. All right.
Go ahead.
That's fine. That's fine. No. It's all right.
No,
I'm bringing the heat tonight, and you guys can't handle it. You two old men cannot handle it.
Wait, there was heat?
Yeah.
I forgot my sunblock, I guess, or maybe my winter jacket.
Man,
you can't handle the truth.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly. Let these writers, who gets in a Hall of Fame. It should be guys that have played in the league or guys that are already in the Hall of Fame. That should be the command, which I know they made some changes this year to who's on it and doing it, but I think there needs to be more
the writers on there for a while, but you should have like a period of time. I have a 5-year stint, right? And then they rotate them, right? Like, hey, you know what? I was on the Hall of Fame committee from 2020 to 2025. My time is up. And then the next guy fills that seat and they rotate him. You maybe even want to rotate back in, you know what I mean? Like in 15, 20 years, but keeping the same guy with the same bias in there every single year, just
no offense to the writers, but no, they should not be the ones deciding who gets in and who doesn't get in. That's my opinion. And if people don't like it, you know where they can go with it.
Well, okay. Sorry, Jordan Renan and Dunleavy.
I didn't say those guys. I said other people. I didn't say the writers don't like it. If fans don't like my opinion about that, it shouldn't be the writers. It should be guys that played. I think now, if you want to have a couple of writers that are on there as part of it, yeah. But I think the majority of the people making decisions should be in the league or have played in the league or already in the Hall of Fame. That's who should, because those are the guys that know. You look at him and say, "Oh, that guy was special." Yeah, I watched him play. I saw what he could do. That's my feeling. But
Don dropping in here with a little super stickers gift. Thank you, Don. Appreciate that, baby. Always appreciate that.
Big Don, of course, Big Don's all the way from Texas. He knows that I have the affinity for stickers, and he always likes to come in the chat and make sure he throws a sticker down because I'm
love it. Thank you, Don. Appreciate you.
I'm like a 6-year-old. I'm amazed by the sticker because it moves.
Love it. Love it. We'll have to send you some crayons to join those stickers. And listen, and Sean, I'm cool in the gang with your concept, right? Again, like it can go either way. If you slant one way, you get an all players opinion, right? If you slant one writer's way, you slant I think the committee should be a mixture of voices and opinions and experiences than having it just one way. If you went all players, they'd be like, man, that guy's a dog. He's got to be in there. That's my boy. We played together at Clemson. Blah, blah, blah. And then it goes, everybody in the Hall of Fame went to Clemson, right? And then you get the writers in there, and they're like, screw New York. New York sucks. We got a New York bias. We're not letting anybody in who's ever played or even driven through New York. You know what I mean? So, in true real world, in any business, it's a collective of different shapes and sizes, right? So you can get a well-rounded opinion, not just writers or players or owners or whatever it may be. I'd like to see a little bit. We should make our own Hall of Fame.
Way to go down that line, right down the line. Not to upset anyone, just right down the line.
Well, down the line sometimes tough, dude.
That's why that was good. No, it was a good job. It's a good job. See, I don't mind offending people. It does not bother me.
I like it. All right. Let me ask you then.
What's up, Cold? I will not relax. I am fired up. We got fireworks tonight, my man.
Tiki Barber. Wait, Michael says right here, Tiki Barber's a great back, but not a great teammate. Well, listen.
Yeah.
My man has got, as I said a second ago, he basically blew himself up. The man has many holes in his personality, we could say, at some point. And we don't really need to dig that part up, but nobody was happy with what went down there off the field. So, I mean, that really kind of hurt his legacy and what people thought about him. So I know exactly what you mean, Michael, and it's a shame because, again, great career, great Giant, and then just, hey, guys, I'm just going to blow this the F up. Everybody back away, and it was too late for anybody to back up. He just blew it all up, and he took everybody with him. All right, going to talk. Everybody in the chat is saying that Tim loves to talk about defense, so we are going to talk a little bit about defense. The defense is the new identity of the New York Giants, and it's kind of come full circle because, it's a completely they got some dogs over there now. We should have some fun watching the defense play. Sean, I'm going to read you a list. Okay.
Yeah.
This list is very short. I'm going to read you the top 5. Single season sack record by a team.
Okay.
I'll start at the 5 and work my way down. Okay. So in 1982, I'm going to give you a guess, by the way. We're going to play a little game here. In 1982, do you know what team led the league in sacks? You get like one guess and you get like 15 seconds to just wing it.
Was it Giants?
No. Tim, 1982. Don't cheat.
Steelers?
No. Both good guesses. 1982, the Chargers led the NFL with 66 sacks.
Wow.
All right. Number 4, okay, is from 1980. Sean, starting with you. Who led the league in sacks, Sean, in 1980?
Player or team? We're talking team.
Still, sorry, did I say player? Still team.
No, I just want to make sure.
It's all team. Led the league.
We'll go with Dolphins.
I like it. No. Tim, 1980. What do you think?
For some reason I want to say Chargers again.
All right. No, it's not. Remember who was really good at that time of the when we were young pups? It was the Eagles with 66 sacks.
Oh.
All right. Number 3. We're moving up or down depending on how you look at it. Tim, starting with you this time. 1986 is number 3 on this top 5 list. Who led the league in sacks in 1986?
I want to say the Giants.
That, my friend, would be true. 68 sacks. The Giants led the league in sacks in 1986. That's, that great Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks, Pepper Johnson, like that. Just, that was
George Martin.
Yep. Yeah. Just absolute dogs back then. Let's keep moving up to number 2, Sean. Who led the NFL in sacks? What team led the league in sacks in 1989?
The
Niners.
Niners.
One, by the way, was a big surprise for me.
The Niners.
No, that's a really good guess. Tim, Tim, 1989.
Actually, it was going to be my guess. I'm gonna go the Chargers.
God. All right. So no, it is not. The number 2 all-time sack single season record held by a team in 1989 with 71 sacks is the Vikings.
No.
By the way, that one took me by surprise. Not a doubt. I'm assuming maybe Deacon Jones was still playing. I'm not 100% sure of that.
Actually, that probably be Jim Marshall.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right. Page, Carl Eller.
Number 1.
I'm just impressed he can read.
It's definitely taking some time.
I was told there'd be no math.
I know.
Yeah. A lot of big pink erasers, though.
And crayons.
Well, Sean, the number 1 team who led the NFL in sacks in 1984, which is they have the more sacks than anyone ever in the history of the NFL in a single season. In 1984 was who?
Chicago Bears.
Before I reveal if he's wrong or right, kicking it to you, Mr. Tim from online Big Blue Entertainment. Check him out. Your answer, please.
The Chargers.
Oh my goodness. It is not the Chargers for his 4 out of 6 guesses.
But I got one right.
Hey, it's like the test. If it's multiple choice, always guess C. Always guess Chargers with sacks.
It is the Bears. And in 1984, the Bears had 72 sacks as a team. So the segue, Tim, is a lot of hype on this defense. They haven't played a snap yet. These guys get injuries in the shower, tying their shoes. Sometimes they're in a ATV accident. Sometimes they blow their hands off on the 4th of July. Some guys slam their cans in a car door. All sorts of things happen. Can the Giants get on this list? How potent will they be? Like, as I mentioned, they haven't even played a down or a snap yet. But we all want to believe that this is a game changer, identity changer on defense. What's your thoughts on them actually participating in this list?
I don't think they make the list. I think that they are going to be improved, but there are some nuances to the gentlemen that we have that create the rush that may cause some issues. And if you take a look at Brian, just starting quickly with Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, both have interesting careers. You look at sometimes the sacks come in plethoras, but then we also have to look at the fact that sometimes both of them disappear at the same time or disappear in general. Brian Burns, outside of that one big season in Carolina, had multiple games where he had no sacks and maybe an assist. Kayvon Thibodeau was his big season, 11.5 sacks. I believe 7 of them or 8 of them came in 4 games. And one of the games was the Seattle game where he had a sack in the beginning of the game and a sack at the end of the game and nothing in between. And then he would go 4 or 5 games without a sack. We said on this channel, on my channel, a million times, we loved James Williams and I went opening day against the Vikings. We had a great time. It was great. We had the skybox. We were sitting there on the beautiful day, and we kept saying to each other, we are concerned that Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns are going to disappear, and they're going to disappear at the same time. And they did that for like the first 4 weeks of the season. So they have this track record of not always being consistent with their sacks. Then you're going to rely on Dexter Lawrence. A lot of sacks that Dexter Lawrence had last year also came from being lined up as a defensive end early on in the season. That could have been from, just creating the mismatch, but you're looking at your interior lineman now where you hopefully have 2 bookend guys on your defensive ends, and you're going to hope that he is going to be more of that internal pressure going up the middle, which are going to allow to collapse the pocket, which is then going to move the quarterback out to where? Hopefully to the one of the other sides, where you then have Abdul Carter hopefully coming in. But you're going to have 4 guys on the field that you think are going to be this dominant rush. And they might, to your point, they haven't played a snap yet. They might as well be. But you also have 3 undersized defensive ends. You also have 3 guys that rely mainly a lot of times. And I know Kayvon bulked up, but so did Daniel. Some guy named Jones did for 3 years in a row. It did nothing because Kayvon's issue wasn't his strength. It's the fact that early on, and especially early parts of the season, he always takes his rush wide. And you always watch. I sit in the 20th row on the lower level of almost every home game. So we get to see it. And you watch the offensive lineman just take Kayvon to the sideline. And we used to scream, just fucking cut it back inside. Because if you did that, at least you got a shot at the quarterback. So you're hoping 2 guys that are inconsistent and a rookie are going to be this massive rush and create this mismatch. And I always get concerned when you have an undersized defensive line, because if you go back to the 86 Giants, the linebackers averaged like 6'4", 250 pounds. The linebackers. That's what we have right now as our defensive ends. And we already have an issue stopping the run. And my thing is, if I'm an offensive coordinator and I see these 3 guys out there, more than likely I'm going to think you're going to rush. So I'm either going to take advantage of your over aggressiveness, or I'm just going to do it. I'm going to wait till you come forward, delayed handoff, and hopefully Dexter's going to be out of the way. And what you have Bobby Okereke and maybe McFadden in the middle of the field. Hasn't been a great combination. Wasn't a great combination last year, but we have to wait to see what it is this year. My thing is this. And I don't like Shane Bowen, and I've never been shying away from that because he likes to generate with 4. He did that in Tennessee. He's going to have to learn to figure out. He did blitz more last year, but then he got away from it because of the injuries. He's going to have to be consistent with his blitz packages. He's going to have to find a way to get all 3 guys on the field. And don't tell me Abdul Carter is going to be an off the ball linebacker, because I'm going to say it again. 2nd year Penn State, big stat that always sticks out, 25.7%. That was his missed tackle percentage. There is a reason
off the ball.
There's a reason, there is a reason why, besides the fact that Penn State lost 2 defensive ends, that he was moved there. And a lot of Penn State fans will tell you this. There's a reason beyond the fact that they lost 2 players to the draft. So this would have made more sense to me if someone like Wink Martindale was still here, or if you had someone that had more of an attacking style, because then you have someone that may come up with a little bit more exotic blitz packages, but it's going to be Shane Bowen's job to fit the players, not take the system and make the players fit into that. He's going to have the players fit, just build it around these guys and kind of just get away from everything that he's known. And hopefully he can make it, hopefully he can figure it out, because that's going to be, if we don't have a defense this year, we had enough problems last year getting up on 3rd down. So hopefully, like I said, gaining that rush, we can get away from that and get off the field. But like I said, if you have an undersized defensive line, and I'm like the Philadelphia Eagles, who has a very large, or the Cowboys, or even Washington now, who has a very large offensive line, I'm worried more about the speed than I am going to worry about the power rush.
So a lot to digest and unpack. So why don't I go to the expert first? We had Mike and McFadden on 4 weeks ago. I asked him.
I love Mike and McFadden now.
Yeah. So I asked him directly. I just wanted to know, like, what's the difference between Wink? What's the difference between Wink and Bowen? What we're all wondering. How does it feel year to year going from Wink's defense to Bowen's defense? What's the major difference? I'm sure, and you don't have to say anything. We're not looking to put you in that spot, but there's got to be a difference between those two systems. And how does it feel going into year 2 with the system? Because I'm sure it's better now you got a year under your belt.
Yeah, without a doubt. Whenever you go, the first year in any scheme is, I don't want to say difficult, because you have the off season, you have training camp to get used to it, understand, to get the basics down, but there's still a little bit of training wheels on it, and everybody's kind of figuring it out as they go. Usually the first 4 or 5 games of the season in a new scheme is kind of seeing how the other teams are playing against it, and what you're getting from an offense and what's hurting us. But yeah, year 2, usually that's the settling point. That's when everybody feels really comfortable. There's already an understanding going into the off season, with what we've done in the past year. There's a lot of film to go off of, a lot of correction to make from the year before. Maybe some things, the coaches want to adjust heading into year 2. So it's always helpful to have that first year under the belt. But yeah, Wink, I think it's pretty obvious. He was really aggressive. He had that, there was the scheme was, I came in as a rookie, so it was difficult for me to learn. I think, people who had seen quite a number of defenses in the NFL were able to get a hold of it pretty quick. But, I honestly, I like both of them. But yeah, Wink was really aggressive. It really didn't matter the time or place, but he was trying to put pressure on the quarterback. I'd say Bowen, he still has that in the bag, and there's going to be specific times where he wants to pressure and bring the house or whatnot, but it's a little bit more flow to it and a little bit more coverage, and especially for linebackers. But I really enjoy both schemes, and I enjoy playing in both of them.
There you go. Something that I personally like, you sit in the lower bowl, 22-yard line, see a lot of Thibodeau. And to me, it's and I got this before he got drafted. I have a good friend of mine lived out in Oregon. He used to say to me, "Man, you got Thibodeau." I'm like, "Yeah, we're excited from him." And we're like, the cat disappears for weeks on a time. I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, he comes out, he gets 3 sacks in a game and 5 tackles, and you never hear from him for the month of September. And I was like, all right, that's college, but it turned out to be spot on. That, like, he's got you mentioned what did you say? He had multi-sacks in what game did you say he had multi-sacks in?
The Seattle game.
Seattle game, and then he had a multi-sack game in Washington. Yeah. All those games in between, he's just not there. Like,
and he couldn't close out the Jet game.
Yes, and he can't go because there's just something about his game, whether it's I don't really get too caught up in his size. He's the same size as Lawrence Taylor almost, right? LT was, 242, 245. But there's a motor thing that's missing, like this tenacity, this I'm coming and I'm still coming and I'm still coming. He never chases the running back down from the backside. He never finishes the play. He never sets the edge. I can't tell you how many times I'm watching him just gets pushed down inside and the back pop in the corner. Drives me insane. I'm like, I will say, Tim, wholeheartedly that I've watched Brian Burns, even though he's definitely light. He's definitely a lighter player, but the dude will set the edge and will grind, right? I mean, he is tough. He gets hurt. He comes back in the game. He will track backs down from the backside. The effort is there. I've never personally seen that with Thibodeau.
It's to me, like I said, it's not the effort with Brian Burns. It's the consistency.
Yeah.
We did a breakdown of his last couple of years in Carolina, and we broke down per season. There was his last season. I think there was 5 or 6 games where he had had an assist. And then there was another like 2 games where he had a tackle. And then he would have like 3 games where he had like 3 sacks or 2 sacks. And then he would go another 2 games with nothing. So, I mean, it's like anything else in life. It's consistency. If you can do it consistently, a sack here, a sack there every game, or even a half a sack, you're getting to the quarterback.
Yep. And the thing is,
can't put it together.
And Sean, jump in here. I think that,
I
just think I see Burns with more pure, well-rounded talent that can be consistent that you're asking for. I just don't see it. I've never seen it out of Thibodeau. Like, there's never consistency. There's never that motor I'm looking for, play after play after play after play, right? I just don't see it. Like, at least in Burns, me personally anyway, I see more effort, willing to make the tackle, willing to set the edge, willing to, to scrape off a tackle and try to make a play. I don't ever see that with Tibbs. I just feel like it's very one-dimensional. It's bull rush, get pushed inside, bull rush. And then once in a while, what he does really well is he dips his inside shoulder and he comes across the face of the tackle and he can get to the quarterback from the inside, right? But he has no outside moves. You never see a swim move. You never see a spin move like Dwight Freeney. You never see any of those. I'm getting there no matter what. It's always bull, and then he's worn out and he's tired. And then once in a while, again, he dips his inside shoulder and he rips through the weak, across the face of the tackle, and he's there. And you're like, dude, if that's your forte, do it more often, because we need more out of you. So, Sean, we've talked about it, that like this team could be dynamic, but they got to be willing to go all the time. They can't be willing to make this, a part-time defense.
Well, I think Tibbs' problem is he's a little too cerebral. And when you're playing the 3-4 outside linebacker, and right now it hurts him in that way. That's my opinion with that. I'll also say, as far as the lightness on our edge guys, I mean, we're 3-4. They're going to be lighter. They're not going to be beefy guys on the edge. So that's to be expected. I do think Burns is the better pass rusher, more explosive than Tibbs, but I do think the weight gain is going to help Tibbs this year. I think year 4 is going to help him as well. But I think as far as the one thing that you guys said that I disagree with is I think he sets the edge. What he doesn't do is he doesn't make the tackle when he sets the edge. He relies on the other guy to come inside him to make that tackle. And that's where I want to see him get better. And then if times he goes on the inside, it's because somebody else is supposed to be on the edge and they suck at it. So I will disagree that he does set the edge better than he gets credit for. It's that he just doesn't make the tackle when he sets the edge. And that's what you want to see. That's where I think he needs to be better at. But I think getting back to the first question, they're not going to make the list, but I think they can lead the league in sacks because Dexter is a big piece of that. You now got Golston on that list. You have Carter that's going to be there. You have Alexander that's possibly there. And listen, here's the thing. If you have two guys coming out the edge side and they go wide, well, that quarterback comes at the middle. That's why Dex was having as many sacks as he had too. So Dex is going to benefit. The other guys are going to benefit on the edge. And if they all stay healthy and you have better depth now, even a guy like Ledbetter, who's good size, he's like 295, can add depth. That'll keep Dexter rested. So with these guys being rested, the offense, we're assuming, is going to be better. It's going to keep them rested. They can go all game. It's hard to go 100% all game when you know two things. The depth behind you is not good, and you're on the field all damn game, right? Offense is going 3 and out all the time. Yep. You know you have to conserve a little energy. Right or wrong, that factors into it, right?
And Michael's talking about stopping the run, Sean, and it's like it's easy. It's almost like the easy button. Yeah, we need to stop the run, but like when Dexter Lawrence is playing with children on either side of him, like they're just not good enough. If your linebackers are constantly being pushed around because they got guards on them, they can't scrape and make the play. And then Bobby Okereke gets hurt with a bulging disc in his back. You ask McFadden to slide over. Like, stopping the run has to be done when you've got a big, strong, fast, dominant defensive line. And then and our coaching staff has gone into it going like this. We got Dexter Lawrence. And you know what? They wear down too. How many snaps can this poor guy take? Right. Well, so stopping the run, Michael, will happen with guys like Sean just said. You got Golston and you drafted Alexander. Right. You're going to have a better play up front. You're never Okereke McFadden, which, by the way, and I'll say this till the cows come home because I don't think you guys understand football sometimes. The Giants haven't had a linebacker to have 100 tackles 2 years in a row for 18 years. So yes, does McFadden get washed out sometimes? Yes. Does he over pursue? Yes. Is he not a 260-pound middle linebacker? No. But he's an A-gap linebacker, right? And he can get in and make those plays. But these guys they can't scrape if they got guards and fullbacks on them. And then Okereke got hurt, and McFadden now is wearing the dot. And then Dexter gets hurt. Like, you're playing with an undersized defensive tackle from SMU at 250 pounds. I mean, come on now. You're never stopping the run unless you have a good defensive line or you're getting pressure. The run stopping will come. The Giants just haven't given Dexter Lawrence any help for ages. They've just it's like, we got Tom Brady, so we'll just win. Well, it doesn't always work that way You can't stop the run if you're only expecting, Dexter Lawrence to do it. So, McFadden and Okereke are good enough. They're not our problem. That has not been it is a problem, but it's not the problem. The problem starts with, well, depending on where you want to start, is the defensive backs have been shameful, right? And you just don't have enough pass rush. You're depending on Dexter Lawrence. So Michael, they will stop the run. It should be better this year. Okereke and Lawrence are healthy. Alexander and Golston are going to make a big difference. Go ahead, Sean. I hope I didn't cut you off.
No, you're fine. I would say the other guy to keep an eye out, second-year player who will be good for depth out there is Muasau. He's very intelligent out there. Some guys really talked highly about him. He's faster than people realize, so he can cover guys. So that's a guy to keep an eye out for this year. And who's the other linebacker that got hurt last year? But there's some other guys they're going to add that are coming back. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think there's, number one, you have now starters are now backups, so that helps our depth. You guys are going to be more rusted. You got a little more size. Harris from Seattle, who Mark Thompson reminded me of his name earlier because I keep forgetting his name because he's got 3 names. But that's another guy that adds depth. It's going to be there. And now if you're not relying on Nacho playing all the time as a starter, he's going to help coming in spot duty. So those are things that it's going to be better. And let's not forget the fact that you got Nubin, Phillips in year 2, who were good against a run. And then you have now Javon Holland, and Adebo, who are 2 physical guys, right? Those are guys that are going to help with the run. So as a team, as a unit, and as Mike also talked about in that show, the communication is going to be better because now you have veterans back there. We don't have Jason Pinnock back there trying to tell other guys what to do as the deep safety, right? You now have Holland back there, wherever Newman's going to line up.
That's huge.
Belton's
been on fire too. We can't count him out. This may be his breakout year,
Well, as the third safety act.
We've heard about the Belton breakout year. I still remember him getting benched in the Texan game his rookie season and then not seeing the field again until almost the end of his second year. And Belton, like I said, he's got a nose for the ball. Got to know, as a former defensive back, he's got to know. I tell you, he's got a nose for a ball. But I always tell you that you look at the Matthew Stafford interceptions. I always bring this little stat up. Who was the trailer on the next 5 touchdown passes that the Giants gave up? And when you're playing deep safety and you're the trailer and his name happens to be Dane Belton, that's what drove Wink and other people crazy, that he doesn't understand angles and sometimes where he needs to be positionally. Because even last year, you look at the Philadelphia game, look at some other games there, he got beat deep so many times. And that's what's frustrating. You see him make a great play, but then you see him be the trailer on 2 consecutive touchdowns.
Yeah. And sometimes, Tim, it's just about like the cat's not in the game either, right? Like you can't expect to get flow and confidence and understand a defense if the only thing you get is third level snaps in practice. What I was taught as a defensive back, what I was always taught, and I played safety. One thing I was always taught, even when you were, and this was ingrained into me in college as well. Deepest
never get deep.
Yeah.
And worst cardinal sin you could make as a safety.
Yeah,
is letting someone get behind you. And
those were the 70s.
That was more like the 50s.
It was the 80s and 90s too, because I played safety as well.
Yeah, single bar, but they always say don't get beat deep. My coach used to tell me, I don't care if you do anything else and you do everything else wrong. The one thing you cannot do is have someone get behind your ass, and that's what Belton does.
I think too, like Sean, you and I harped on this all season long. Pinnock just fell off the map. With the angles were just terrible.
Because he had to play deep safety when that wasn't his strength. When he was successful, when he was closer to the line,
and Newman should be a big help in year 2.
Well, there's some guys that are coming into year 4, and I think year 4 is the year that you see if they're going to take off, they're going to take off there too, like those later round guys. So maybe Belton can do something there. We'll see. Again, you got Tibbs in year 4. So I think
Ryan wants to know about Jordan Riley. You're talking about a 7th round pick out of Oregon. I mean, it ain't going to happen.
No, I mean, again, depth or whatever. But I think the guys they brought in will get more over that. But listen, I know we say Chapman's undersized, but dude's got a motor, and I think he can Again, that's a guy I spoke highly of when they signed him, and I said, look, and he showed some flashes last year.
Character. I'm just saying in the NFL, you just got to be big, fast, and strong.
The funny thing is, when those young guys came in that one game, they stopped the run. When you had Chapman, when you had those other guys, better than Nacho and those other guys.
Eric was hurt; he was out. McFadden slid over, wore the dot. Chapman came in, and they played. They did fly around and play well. There's no doubt.
They did. So I think this year 2, is going to be where guys are thinking less. Because you remember, you think about the Winks first year, there was a lot of mistakes that happened because they weren't understanding the defense, right? And here's the interesting fact: even with all the injuries last year, they were still ranked higher than they were under Wink against the run by 1 spot, but it's still higher. So it's not like not like Bone was awful against the run. He had all those injuries, and he still was 1 spot ranked higher than what they were under Wink. So the run game has been a problem for years. It's not a Bowen thing. It was a personnel thing. You didn't have enough guys next to Dex. And so now I think you got some guys. And Golston's the guy. Golston's the guy that don't sleep on Golston. He's been not talked about enough this offseason, and Micah talked about it on the show too. They watched him at Dallas and saw what he did, and he wasn't starting because you look at 2 other guys in front of him, but he's a young ascending guy coming in, so don't be surprised at what he's going to do. And again, like I said, Ledbetter, you get him under Patterson's tutelage at 295. That's a guy that can spell. He can do some things because Jacksonville doesn't do anything with their D-line. Like, they're just terrible with their D-line. They don't develop anybody under D-line. Name the last good D lineman out of Jacksonville. Can anybody name them? Because I sure as shit can't remember. So,
no.
I mean, they had the number 1 overall draft pick, and he's doing similar numbers to Tibbs. So he's on the D line. They're not playing a 3-4. I'm pretty sure they're a 4-3. So, again, I think we all agree that Andre Patterson's one of the best D-line coaches out there, right? So let's see what he can do with a guy like Ledbetter and Harris, and now you have this depth. So, yes, is the run game a concern? But I think the biggest thing is, again, the offense is going to make a huge difference because when you're having sustained drives, you're letting your defense rest. Your defense isn't worried they got to have a shutout every game to try to win, or they got to be playing perfect all the time. These guys can play fast and free, have some fun. So year 2, I'm going to be very critical, but I think that offense makes a big difference with that defense being better this year.
Tim, 50 sacks?
I would give him 50 sacks. I would. I think again, it's going to have to rely on health, and it's going to have to rely on consistency. But if you want an attainable goal,
okay, I like that. 50 is your number. I'm just writing it down so we can have this conversation throughout the season. 50 is your number.
I would say, but I was going to say between 45 to 50, but like I said, I think 50 is a reasonable number if you find consistency and if Abdul Carter plays more than 35, 40% of the snaps, because he's going to have to play. The kid's going to have to play more than I think, not that he's going to be accustomed to, but they're going to have him on the field in different scenarios more often than I think that they may want to, because there's going to be some liabilities outside of him rushing. But I do think he's got to play at least 50% of the snaps.
He's going to play a lot. Like, and listen, I know we don't look into OTAs, but when you look and you watch what he's doing in drills, like, he's got a different gear than a lot of the other guys. When you watch him, again, I'm not looking at what he does. I'm looking at how he does it. Like, he just looks different than the other guys that are out there. So I expect him to play a lot more than people realize. I think they're going to use him all over. I think Bowen's going to use him exactly how Dallas uses Micah Parsons, because he can play anywhere. And we saw that video that got leaked of where he was lining up inside and he did some things. And but yeah, there's just guys, and I think they'll have more than 50. They had 36 after 8 games last year, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or however, whatever it was. So I think they can go above 50.
I mean, we talk about it, we laugh. It's like a buzzword on the show, so we might as well not be remiss and bring it up again. But NASCAR, we laugh. It's a buzzword now. But if you're putting Tibbs and Burns and Dexter and Carter on the field at one time, like, speed and strength can kill, man. Those guys should be able to, stunt their way to 50 sacks. Now, again, you're not going to play those 4 every down, right? Somebody out of those 4 is sitting down. Most likely it would be Tibbs, in my estimation. Tibbs being more like a package guy, 3rd down pass rusher. Carter playing playing all 4 downs. Dexter playing all 4 downs. Burns is playing all 4 downs. So the only guy that, to me, that loses snaps is Tibbs. And 50 sacks. I mean, like in the chat, people were saying something like, I was using years that no one heard of or something. That's the top 5 all time, people. Yeah. That's not a list I made.
Right? Yeah. It's not like he was making it up.
It's not like, hey, we're old, so we're going to bring up old dates.
Mark was like, he's going back to leather helmets. I'm like, in the NFL, the all-time list. I didn't just pick these teams out of the ether, my friends. Single season sack record by a team stands as the Bears #1, Vikings 2, Giants 3, Eagles 4, Chargers 5. That is a list of all time. I didn't just let me just pull these years out of the ether. And believe it or not, which is actually, if you really think about it, 1984, 1989, 1986, 1980, and 1982. What does that tell you? It tells you that, like, defense could actually play defense back then. And now, you can't do crap anymore. Everything's a flag. And can't hit quarterbacks, can't touch defensive backs, can't touch the ball, can't do anything anymore, right? Because Roger Goodell says it's not fair. Everybody has to be able to play flag football on the weekends. So the game must be, not as violent. Ryan says over 50 sacks, but not much is Ryan, what are you saying here? Let me
not much over 50. He says
not
50,
much,
but not much
over 50. Yeah, I like Tim's number. I'm putting Carter at 9.5 sacks and defensive player of the year.
I have to laugh because some people know and some people don't know. I'm on the Believe Network, which is Believe in Giants with Carl Banks, and right now the Believe Network is having Joe Shane on their show. On another channel, and I laughed because I was supposed to be over there, but I don't want to go.
I'll let you go.
No, I'm going to stay here. Fuck them. I made a commitment here, but I laugh because I'm seeing people in the chat, in both chats, watching and leaving messages. And I'm not trying to say anything nice about you guys because that's just not my style, but that's fucking pretty impressive. That you have Joe Shane on one side, and you saw the same people in both chats still leaving messages.
Well, for what it is, rush. Yeah, like for what it's worth, we constantly just always give credence to the people that hang out with Rush and part of the Rush family. Like, they are loyal. They show up on Mondays, right? They tweet us all week long. They support all the content we create. Like, we're known for our interviews, right? We interview a player or a beat reporter every month. They show up in droves. They go to the YouTube channel. We've got really good people. We appreciate you coming on, Tim, because we're expanding our audience.
I have on Joker.
I know, twice.
That's my guest list.
Twice, not just once, twice. By the way, guest list. I felt a little slighted, but it's fine. It's cool. He's second best. What can I say? Our
he doesn't have any hair.
It's true.
You can't have two guys on with good hair at the same time. Tim's not going to bring on another guy that has good hair on his show.
I am going to bring on the hat guy. Me on the Believe Network because Tim is and we are not, because we're not as big as Tim. We're not as good as Tim. But if we were ever on the Believe Network, I would do my hair in honor of Tim.
I would appreciate that.
You got it.
I would.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Tim, I want you to back me up here. Can you tell Cole the numbers that the show had when I was on your show? Can you please let him know that the numbers?
Here we go.
Really, according to what you told me, because he said, I bet the Joker show did low numbers. Go ahead, Tim.
We actually had fairly high numbers. The stream alone, not counting Twitter, on YouTube, we had over 2,000 views. We had over, I think it was around 4,500 downloads on the Believe Network and on Spotify and iTunes. And then we had another 100 something people that were following us on Twitter the same Sunday. We usually had a good crowd on Sunday, but it hasn't been as large as it's been because of the off season. But I will say, I don't want to give credit to anyone because that's just not my style. But Joker did bring in a little bit of an audience. I'm not gonna give you two.
No, you can't. No, we know because we know your style, so we know what that means when you say it that way. So we know. So Cole, take that, my man. You're my guy, Cole. But
by the way, Dash is showed up to hang out. What's happening, Dash?
Hey, Dash.
It was good to see you. And Dash once says 52 sounds good, but let's round up to 60. Fair enough, man. Well, I'm down with 60. So we will definitely Cole is the best because he just makes me laugh about it. Yeah, he's normally busting my ball, so I'm glad he's busting.
I know. He's getting on me now. Okay.
So he accounted for 5 people, maybe. Okay.
He's not happy because I said something about not favorable about Wink, and Wink's his guy now because he's a Michigan fan, so he loves Wink at Michigan now. That's why that's why he's not happy with me right now.
My son
he's my guy. He's still my guy.
If my son
is still my guy, but
my daughter plays at Michigan State. If my son goes to Michigan to play, we're gonna have all sorts of issues in my house. So, I don't know what side I'll root for when you two start squabbling over Michigan versus non-Michigan, because I'll have one of each, so I won't know what to do. Hey, let me ask you guys about this, and this is a little bit off target, but it's worth bringing up. ESPN is something we all grew up with.
Yeah.
Used to be a lot of fun, whether it was the catchphrases or the top 10. And I mean, just for decades, right? Decades, you knew the personalities, you glued in, you stopped in, whether it was the 6, the 8, the 11, you knew you had your guys, you watched it, whoever it was, Berman, whoever it was, right? It was your guys. I'm in streaming tech. That's my career. I know you guys all think I do this for a living, but no, I do not. It's not pay the bills because you guys are all cheap. But no, I'm kidding aside. ESPN is available now to stream, right? And you used to be able to get it through like Fubo, or you can always get it in packages and stuff like that. But ESPN now is available to just like you would Peacock or Hulu or Netflix. You can just stream ESPN, right? I got to ask you guys this because, and I know I'm already preparing for all you other folks to call me old heads, get off my lawn, all this stuff. But this is serious. Like I'm looking at I'm looking out for your wallets here. So instead of just killing me before it sinks in, ESPN is going to create a bundle to make it look good, right? And again, this is what I do for a living. So I know this stuff, the carriage agreements. I know all about this stuff. The DSPs, the SSPs. ESPN really, to me, doesn't have that type of exclusive content that it used to be. It's going to be $300 a year. So, my question is I do it for a living, so I'm all about streaming, right? I'm always, doing the research, what's new, what's hot, why. I love the tech side of it because I'm in the ad tech world. Sean, ESPN, we grew up with it, was something you never missed. You watched it a minimum of 2 times a day as a high schooler, college, maybe in your early 20s, right? It was just something you did. I mean, now it's just the content's terrible. Yeah, it's garbage, but they're going to charge $30 a month. That's $300 a year. Like, are you the type of guy that's going to spend $300 a year on streaming ESPN?
I don't even watch it for free. So no, I'm not going to spend money to get it. I mean, sometimes I watch it for Sunday Night Baseball for, when the Yankees are on. Even that I don't like watching because it's just terrible. No, I don't watch anything they offer for free. I mean, some of their other shows are kind of cool, like the Peyton's Places and, they're 30 for 30s, which I don't even know if they do those anymore. But yeah, no, I mean, they're so awful. Their takes are trash. It's just all about, it's all clickbait stuff. It's like, who can be the loudest, who can say the craziest thing. I mean, no, they're just awful. Let me say again, I don't watch them for free. I am not paying for them.
Yeah, I'm like shocked because it's just there's just no content there that is must-see TV. There's no appointment watching. I'm not being like, hold on, Tim. I got to go watch.
I'll say this, PTI is the only still good show that's
I didn't even know PTI was still on.
I believe it is. I don't watch it, but it's the only still good show on there because Around the Horn just went off the air a couple weeks ago. But PTI is still,
No,
in
that
my
was
opinion,
still.
yeah. So PTI is the only good show on that network anymore. So I'll give credit to PTI because Kornheiser and Wilbon are really good. I'll give them that. Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
I remember, and I am going to show my age. I remember when ESPN first came on in '79.
Yeah.
It was Leonard Lee and George Grandy. I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
And I remember it was like in September. I remember when it first came on, and you were like, to the King's point, it was revolutionary. You would go there, and you would watch the 8 o'clock, then you would have to watch the 6, and you would have to watch the 10, and you had everything that was going on. It was the only way you could get all this sports information. But now, with the internet, with X, just in general, and all these other channels, it's like there's no more cachet to ESPN. And once in a while, like I said, I like the 30 for 30s. They do still make them. But it's like I don't turn into them for my news anymore. They don't really have, outside of maybe a game here and there. What am I going to watch? ESPN 3 and watch, college badminton, it's just, there's just so many other ways to get content for free. And if you have like we have Sling TV in our house.
Yeah.
We get like 14 college football season. I can get 14 different games for free.
Yep.
All at the same time. I don't have to go to ESPN. YouTube has the NFL package now, so I get all my NFL games from there. It's just, there's just so many ways now to get news real time, that the whole purpose of the channel, which was, all sports news all the time. How many times do they even have Sports Center on now? I mean, I haven't even noticed. I haven't even looked. So I can't even remember the last time I say, you know what? I think I'm going to go over to the last thing I wanted to watch on ESPN was the Mark Gastineau 30 for 30.
Okay.
And I didn't even watch it live. I DVR'd it.
Okay.
And that was that. And I didn't even see that on ESPN. I saw it on X.
It's just amazing because like I said, like this is what I do for a living. I mean, like they have like Fubo, which is a sports aggregator.
Yeah.
You could spend $15, $14 a month and watch all the games on Fubo. I'm talking soccer, hockey, baseball, football, NCAA, lacrosse. They got it all, right? Like I can't find anything that would hold my attention or make me stop what I'm doing, being like, maybe the ESPN game of the week that might sometimes on Sunday night, right? I'd be like, I'll watch a little baseball, right? But now I can, you can stream off of Yes, or like I said, you can stream on, the Big Ten network, right? Or all this stuff, because there's so many options now. I was just kind of curious because I was shocked to see the ESPN, like, all right, cool, I'll stream, ESPN, but why? I just, and they start stacking these shows that they're the same shows with more loudmouths talking about the same thing. And look, I'm a loudmouth. I get it. But, these guys are getting paid gobs of money to say nothing. Like nothing comes out of their mouth that's even, instrumental. There's nothing educational. There's nothing that makes me stop in my tracks and go, that was a really good point. And I even know, believe it or not, I remember the last thing that grabbed my attention on ESPN was the monologue that Mike Greenberg made about Eli Manning making the Hall of Fame. Like, it's like it was a legendary moment because, we are all crowded around, that whole month of period where everyone's like, he is, he isn't, he is not. He sucks, he's great. And everybody was going crazy. And Greenberg just rolled. I'm sure he practiced it. I'm sure he wrote it out, but it was flawless. And it was like, I remember like watching ESPN, watching, Greeny do his thing. And he just ripped off this, 8-minute monologue about Eli Manning. It left me like, yeah, like what he said. It was like doing the Spider-Man meme. I'm like, and I after that, I can't say that it's something that I value anymore. I was just wondering what you guys thought, because doesn't matter how old you are. If you're from your late 20s to your late 50s, you grew up with ESPN in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
It's feel like, you know what, Sean? I think we should hold a funeral. I think you should, get a shovel, go out back where the gators are, and I think you should dig a hole and throw a picture of Oberman and Berman and Kenny Mayne and
Jackson.
Yeah, get pictures of their like fat heads of them and just throw them in a hole, and then we'll bury it. We'll just why don't we
I'll give him. I got a pond out back, so I'll just do the burial at sea. That's all.
Oh, there. No, stop right there. Let's do a funeral pyre.
That's exactly what I was going with.
Yeah.
That's what I said, burial at sea.
Listen, don't go any further. We are doing this. Yeah. We are going to make a boat with it says ESPN on it. And we're going to put all the little bobbleheads. Someone's going to steal our idea first. We got to do it. We're going to make a boat. We'll put all their heads on it. You sail it out. And then you just start shooting bow and arrows that are flaming tips on them and burn the boat at sea. We are so doing this.
I did want to make one announcement. I'm actually doing a funeral for ESPN. I'm going to actually get a boat and some flaming arrows, and we're going to be doing that.
Tim was great. Wasn't he? Great guy. Love that guy.
That's what it's like.
Yeah. Now you know.
Boy, I don't like that. You have to fucking do that more to people.
Yeah. I'm like, son of a bitch. I like this guy too much. He's too fast. He's too smart. He's stealing my idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, I'm going to wrap it up. I know you guys all have better things to do than hang out with us. We will bring back the Wednesday show, which is Rush Hour, folks. I know you guys are used to seeing the truth doing a Wednesday show. That will resume when we get into training camp, right? And that'll be out there for some extra content on Wednesdays. We're here at 7:30. NYGiantsRush.com. You'll find all the articles will start kicking back now. Off season, we're all kind of laid back doing nothing but hanging out with Tim, drinking beers. But website, you guys know it. There's a store there if you want to buy some cool gear. You always got that option. Definitely make sure if you're one of my guys, I'm sure you're both because Tim's numbers crush. Make sure you're following Tim. Make sure you're checking out his YouTube channel. He's on a Believe Network, which, by the way, is super impressive. Yeah, because he can have anybody on, and he has Joker on, which is like he's slumming it. But hey, sometimes Joker needs a job. Make sure you're following him, all our guys. Appreciate all you guys. I mean, again, there's 120 people bouncing in and out. Appreciate that. You guys are sticking around between Bob. And by the way, I'm going to ask this real quick before we sign off. Is Bob Papa, if any of you guys that are bouncing between the shows, is Bob Papa saying anything worthwhile? Or are they just like, we're contracted to do a show? Is there something actually happening? Anybody out there?
Listen, I just a quick Bob Papa story. Bob Papa hates me.
Why?
Well, I'm going to get to it.
What was a long story?
This is called the build-up. It's not called, let's just get right into the answer, right into the question.
It was taking a long time, Tim.
I said 6 words. Long story short, we went to the town hall for the Giants after their playoff season. I asked Daniel Jones a question, and I asked him a question that I probably shouldn't have asked, and everyone got mad. And so Bob Papa is on the stage, and he's staring at me. And he goes to me, what's your Twitter handle? Because it was Twitter back then. And I was like, Online Big Blue 1. He goes, I know you. You and I get into it all the time. And he's giving me this look, and he's kind of chastising me. And I'm looking at him like, I don't even fucking follow you on Twitter, Bob. I said, I think you're somebody else. I think you're thinking I'm somebody else. So I figured, okay, it's no big deal. That same year, I'm at the rookie symposium, and I'm at the Giant headquarters. And then there's Bob Papa down the other end of the hallway. So being the douchebag I am, I'm yelling, Bob Papa, as loud as I could in this empty hallway right in front of the Giants lunch area. He just looked at me, gave me this look, and just fucking turned around and went the other way. And I'm there with one of my friends, and he goes, he doesn't like you. And so what cracks me up is, of course, Bob Papa and Carl Banks are on the Believe Network.
Yes, they are.
So I always like to bring that up every time I'm on Twitter, or every time I like to hashtag Bob Papa on something that, we are all part of the Believe family. So Carl Banks says he's going to come on the show in August. So I'm also trying to get Bob to come on as well.
Oh. We've never had Bob, never got Bob on. Had Carl a couple times. Always got some really cool Carl stories. Again, like, if you appreciate who Carl is, and guys like you and me and Sean, we appreciate Carl who he is. you get some real authentic, great stories, and then he still makes sure that they're relevant on what happens today. So Carl's always been a really cool guy. It's hard to like chastise a guy who was that good and knows the game and is still around the game. Some of the fans, they get belligerent on Carl, and Sean and I always like, I don't get it. Like there's some room and some place to push a little bit, but like, I don't know, Sean, how many times have we seen like people like going to town on Carl, and you're like, dude played the game. Yeah. He definitely knows
at a
more
higher level than
all of us combined.
Yeah. And the fact that he interacts with like nobodies on Twitter is just impressive, to say the least. Like, he could easily not be as interactive as he is, and he does it. Now, again, is he going to say things that everybody agrees with? No, but the fact that he engages and comes out arguments and does what he does, I mean, to me, that's impressive. So I do think now he's been on a Believe and they have a different podcast, his takes are a little different. He's a little more critical. I know he got accused of that before, but again,
I've gotten into arguments with Carl Banks, and I was always shocked when he said that he would want to come on, because I have a segment where I have baby Carl Jr., where I pop up Carl Banks and I have a helium voice and I'm pretending I'm Carl Jr. So I mean, I've thrown the Carl Banks helmet away, in the middle of a stream. I've said some things I probably shouldn't have said, and then and was very critical about how he is a homer, and which spurned some of the conversations on Twitter, to your point. And I was shocked when he was like, and then he DM'd me, he followed me one day and DM'd me, and then I was with him on one of the Believe shows, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll come on." And I was thinking to myself, does this guy remember all the shit that I said about him for like a year and a half? That all of a sudden he is gracious enough to say, yeah, you know what? And he even said on one of the Believe channels, he goes, Tim's got some interesting takes, some good takes, and we should listen. I'm like, I was like, I think Carl's off his meds, but he just seems to be that good. To your point, he interacts more than he probably should, but he just seems like such a good guy.
Or take it from that point, like that, he knows the game at the highest level, but he's willing to like entertain your thoughts because they're your thoughts and they matter. He's like, hey, look, we all got a space here. I don't have to believe and subscribe to what you say. So he's not trying to shut you down. Like, so it's like where everyone's like, I'm right, you're right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. He's just like this. I can tell you what my experience is from playing it, watching it, coaching it, reporting it, And he's come to, I think, as Sean said, like now that he has the Believe Network, I think he's been a little bit more himself. He's been a little bit more opinionated. He's been a little bit more to the point, where early on, I think those guys had to kind of toe the line, right? Like a little bit, right? When you're an employee, so to speak,
Oh, well, there was the game 2 years ago where he said during the broadcast that the Giants are officially broken. And I was in the coaches club, and they have the pipe in from from the radio team, and during the post game, or after the post game, he kind of walked that statement back, and I called him out on it on Twitter, and I was like, you said the Giants are officially a broken team, but then you kind of like, you kind of backed it up a little bit, and he kind of mentioned it on one of the Believe channel streams that he did, that he's not, to your point, I don't think he's changing his opinion. I think he's being more of himself, because he was kind of critical with the Giants, saying, listen, I hope they're going to be 1-7, but in November we could be talking about an entirely different story. He's like, we could be talking about the first overall pick. And I never heard him say anything like that for years, as a Giant broadcaster.
Yeah.
Things change, my friend. Things change. Well, we're gonna wrap it up. Tim, anything you're promoting? What's going on in your world you want these folks to know?
Yeah, of course you can follow me on Online Big Blue on YouTube. On the Believe Network is New York Giants Straight Talk, so you can find that everywhere on Believe, everywhere find podcasts. I also have my other podcast, which I laugh because you mentioned it. Didn't mention, but you kind of mentioned it by accident. Get Off My Lawn, the Mad Ramblings of a Gen Xer, which also can be found anywhere you can find podcasts. We're actually the number 3 top ranked Gen X podcast out there right now, so we're growing with that as well. And I just really want to thank you guys for allowing me to come on and talk about the team we all love.
Yeah, and Joker's been like, man, this guy's so good. I'm like, We know he's good. Well, we got to tell everybody he's so good for. We know he's good. He's like, no, he's a different kind of good. I'm like, oh, he's a different kind of good? So, hats off to you, dude. You do a great job. I mean, it's unbelievable how much content you crank out. I love it. We'll definitely have to get a beer. I sit on the 22-yard line, 22 rows up.
Yeah. We are almost right in the 50, about 20 rows up.
Yeah. My dad's had them since 1968, and then when they built the new stadium, my dad's like, I'm not paying no seat license. So we'll definitely have to make sure we get a beer in the parking lot this year.
Oh, definitely.
Joker, you got anything for me?
No, I said enough tonight. I'm good.
All right.
It was a fun show. I appreciate it. We
are going to see you guys next Monday, 7:30. Supposed to have Jordan Renan on, but I'm not sure if that's locked in. We're definitely not having Tyrone Tracy on. As we all know, we got burned pretty loud and wide on that one. If you've seen it out there that someone is out there representing him, that was me. I was the one that reported that because we got burned on that one. So, we're working on some other interviews coming up. So we'll see you guys next week.